Hey guys, it's Stephanie from Oh You're Lovely, where we carry the largest selection of Sola wood flowers in the United States. And today's tutorial is all about watercolor, both in a tube and in a pen. Alright guys, this tutorial I'm so excited about, and it's going to be 100% playtime is really all that it's going to be. A lot of these techniques I've never really, we're just going to go with the flow. We're going to play with a whole bunch of paint, get our fingers a little dirty, and just see what happens. So I hope you love this tutorial. I hope you learn a ton from it, and I hope it really inspires you to just get out some paint, grab some Sola flowers, and just have some creative fun. Alright guys, the supplies are just going to be what you have on hand or what you want to play with when it comes to watercolors. So we are going to use, for this tutorial, we're using some watercolor, high pigmented watercolor. It comes in these little tubes. We're going to be using that along with, I didn't have it on hand. I have a little paint pad or paint tray that I'm going to be using. You don't have to use that. A paper plate works just fine. I also have a whole different slew of paint brushes, but a few are really all you're gonna need. You don't need something with a ton of bristle space, but depending on the size flower, a couple detail brushes and a few other paint brushes are gonna be handy. We are also gonna be playing around with these watercolor paint pens. If you like what we're doing with them and you wanna play with them, by all means, go ahead and play with these. We will make sure to link them in the description. There's no referral or anything like that. It's just what I am using, but whatever ones you want to use is perfect. I also have a spray bottle with just a little bit of water, nothing else, as well as a couple cups of clean water that then turn dirty, and then we play with those as well. So, all right guys, enough of that. Oh, paper towel and a little bit of paper too, just to play around with the colors is perfect as well. All right, that's enough. That's all you need, I think. We'll find out. All right, let's jump into the tutorial, you guys. All right, so what we've got over here, I've got a little paint pad or a little tray for all of my liquid watercolors that we're possibly gonna use. We're also gonna play around with some watercolor pens. I'll make sure that there's a link in the description. It's not affiliated or a referral, but I'll just link to the ones that I have. There's so many of them though, so I'm sure any of them will work. I also have a little bit of a spray bottle, nothing else in there but water, a clean cup of water, and then we're gonna do something also with some more water of just putting in the paint and doing a dip dye technique. But for right now, let's just dive in and work on hand painting some of these flowers. All right, I think the first one I wanna do is actually, let's make a orchid. But we're gonna make a, that greenish orchid that I really, really like. And so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab some bright green. We're just gonna lighten it up even more. So we're gonna add a little bit of yellow into our pan. And I'm even gonna grab, I'm gonna grab cream. I'm just gonna pop that up there. And then for the purple, we're gonna grab a violet. But I want it to be more of a kind of magenta. So I'm also going to grab, let's see here. We'll grab this red. We're going to grab a bright red. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pull some of that green, I'm going to pull some of that yellow, and I'm going to mix that. And I want to grab just a little bit of this cream too, to get our color going. All right, so I'm gonna lay some of that down. I'm gonna grab my water. And there we go. And that's really pulling the color. So I was able to do all of those petals just with that one little bit of paint that I laid down on the first petal. And I'm gonna keep on going. I'm just kind of grabbing up the excess and popping it down there. Okay, so that is already pretty much done. So now I clean off my brush, dab it off, clean it off on my paper towel, and we're gonna try to get that really pretty kind of magenta-y kind of purple. And that's too much red, not enough purple, so we're gonna grab a whole bunch more purple. There we go. Here's the color I want. Okay. I'm gonna kind of dab that off because I've got so much. I'm actually gonna get my brush dirty or cleaned off a little bit because it's so heavily saturated. And then what I'm gonna do, so my brush, you can see there's still paint on there. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna kind of just dab in there in different spots. And I could have probably used maybe a smaller brush for some of this, for those detail parts. But there we go. Kind of filling in to give that look of that green and purple orchid that we love. Oh, I'm gonna go on this side a little bit there. That's a little bit better for them. Do it on this side. Okay. You can also take your paper towel and dab up a little bit. So push on that and then just dab off some of it if there's too much of an excess of paint. Oops. All right, one down. All right, well now we're gonna work on a hibiscus. And we've already got some yellow, so I'm just gonna grab that yellow up. I know it's got some green over there, but I'm not too worried about that. I'm gonna get a decent amount of the watercolor because we're going to saturate this and pull up a lot of the color. I'm not gonna focus though way down at the bottom. I'm gonna focus more on my top leaves for right now. I'm just gonna pull that all through. Come up from the bottom and pull up into that crease. So the highest concentration is closer to the center, and then it finishes off that transition. Now for this one leaf right here, this one's kind of moving a little bit. Now there's a real high saturation right in that one spot, but we're gonna pull that up so that we get the whole petal is painted. Then push it back, and there you go. All right, let's do a two-toned or maybe three-tone color. I think what I want to do is I want to start, maybe we'll do darker on the outer petals, lighter in the center, and then we'll do yellow in the middle. So I'm going to do that red again, but I'm also going to pull, I've got like a little pink. Now, I don't know if you guys can hear it on the camera, but I guess you hear that squeaky sound? I think that's normal, but I hear it often. Isn't that pretty though by itself, not pulling that up, and that kind of scrubbing effect that you can do? So I'm just pulling that up again into those petals, okay? Not a lot of paint. We're kind of getting down into the flower. And then bringing it up to the other parts of the petal. Okay, and now we're gonna transition into that red just kind of dab that off a little bit. And again, I'm gonna go down and scrub. So then get your brush nice and wet and pull that on up. But again, like if we wanted to grab a little bit more paint because we want that kind of darker in the centers, while it's still wet, you can deepen that a little bit more. Why don't we get this flower wet just a little bit? Let's see what happens. All right, so I've got my spray bottle. I'm just gonna spritz it off camera. All right. It's a little wet now, and I'm just going to focus on another scrub kind of technique. Okay, so there's that. And I'm gonna spray it again. And I'm gonna tip it upside down, kind of shake it off a little bit. All right, so there is that. And now we're just gonna go around in the petals. I'm gonna get a smaller brush. I think this one's a little too big for this. So I'm just gonna grab a smaller detail brush. Just because of these are pretty tightly wound kind of petals. Because I wanna get down in there, down in the base of these petals and pull that all up. Okay, we're just gonna go around in a circle, grabbing that. And I'm putting that orange like right in that crease where that petal has like a little crease to shape the petal. You can also, when they're wet, you can now kind of adjust them a little bit. That water softens them up. Again, my water was just straight water. There's no glycerin, but you could add glycerin to it. I've noticed with glycerin, once you spray down glycerin and put paint on top, it doesn't always transfer the paint as smoothly, maybe. There's this kind of surface that they're sitting on top of. So just try it out, see what you like. So far though, I've only been playing with just water with my watercolors and not adding any glycerin because we're using such thin amount of paint and a lot of water that it's not causing the flowers to be saturated in a thicker kind of paint that causes sometimes that brittleness. All right, the last thing we're gonna do with this stuff right now is I've got a clean glass cup of water. And we're gonna try to dip dye them. Now, I don't have a good ratio yet. I'm still learning. So we're gonna do this together and we're gonna see what happens. I think what we'll do is we will dye, let's do, yellow seems to be, well, the last time I did a yellow, it was pretty light, but let's give it a go. So I'm gonna squirt some yellow in there. This is probably where I use the most amount of the watercolor, is doing the dip dye. I'm gonna leave the orange that's on there and we're just gonna mix that around. Okay, so there's the saturation of our water. This cup was slightly dirty. I don't think it's gonna make a difference, but you never know. Kind of looks like orange juice at this moment, but we're gonna make sure we get all that paint picked up. Okay. And then what I'm gonna do, I think we'll use this one and pop bloom in there. So it does work. It's going to give a soft kind of look, depending on the water to paint ratio. So I'm sure you could re-dye this, or while it's wet. Okay, you guys, while it's still wet, let's just play around a little bit. So while it's still wet, maybe we can darken up the yellow a little bit in certain spots. Yes, we can. And this actually, oh my gosh, look at that. So I've got a little bit of that same yellow over here and like just a little dab of it. And I'm just gonna touch up those flowers just to add a little bit more color saturation to it. And I think, because we're in a plain mood, I'm gonna grab that little bit of red I have, a little bit of yellow, I'm gonna make an orange, and I'm going to saturate the back petals. I want to get that water in there. I'm just gonna kind of play with the back petals to, oh, this is so much fun. Just to see what happens. So it's really wet, and I'm just kind of going down and then pulling up the color. That's fun. That's a lot of fun. And you could scrub a little to make that center pop even more. That little button guy. Look at that. Now if you're seeing pooling, which does sometimes happen, this is where if you have a paper towel, you can kind of just dab it. Ooh, that was fun. And it's gonna do its own little thing. And then if you're like, well, no, I wanted that to the color, you can fix it with your fingers. Sorry about the out of focus for a second. When we're using watercolor pens instead of a brush and the tubes of paint, there are some drawbacks to these, but there are some pluses. So the drawback is you really don't have control of how much paint you're grabbing and using in the during the dyeing process. However, they're there. You don't have to push anything out as far as you don't have to mix the colors. Everything's already set for you. They're wet, they're ready to go. So we're just gonna play for just a little bit, show you guys how these all work. So they're just a pen with a brush on there. You also, most of the time, will get with that a little tube that it's backwards. You would think it's like righty tighty lefty loosey, but I think it's the opposite. To open these, you're gonna open it up, and then you can put water in there, and you're gonna use that for blending, or to add a little bit more, yeah, to blend. That's the good word. That's the word I'm looking for that. And I'm also gonna grab a piece of paper, because that's a little handy when it comes to this particular project. Move some of these flowers. I have never tried the paint pens with an already dyed flower, so we're gonna see if that works. We're gonna play together. So here is one of our, okay, these make that squeaky sound. You hear that squeaky sound? It makes a squeaky sound. Yes, it does. Again, just using water from a spray bottle. I'm gonna spritz it, and then do you see it pulled all that color? And I'm just gonna kinda use that to then pull up the rest that I want. Okay. Now the rest of this, what I would probably do, I want to see the water that I was using for the other one. I want to try something. So I'm going to grab this. I have no idea how good of a saturation it is. Okay, it's going to like just do the lightest. So I'm just going on the sides. Okay. And it's creating the lightest color pink. But that's probably what I would do with one of these, just because you got so many of these extra little petals. It's gonna be kind of hard to pull all of those. But there, it's the lightest pink possible, and I'm getting water all over the place. That's okay. I'm gonna dab the bottom, but then what I'm gonna do while it's still wet is I'm gonna grab a pink. You guys, this is full on like I'm playing right now. I'm not even like, half these things I haven't even ever tried. I'm just like, let's just play and see what happens. So I'm gonna grab a pink. I've got this light pink, which is actually kind of a bright pink, so we'll see what happens. Oh yeah. Boy, oh boy, that's bright, but we'll see what happens. So it's all wet so far. And actually the amount, when it's super saturated and wet, the paint pen itself becomes, very translucent. And that's the one thing with it, comes with the daisies. Sometimes you're gonna get those little petals fluffing off because there's so many little petals. So this is actually losing all my paint because it's so wet. But it's brightening up a little bit. So that's why I have this paper over here. It brings back some of that color. All right, let's grab a red instead, because that's gonna kind of lighten up. There we go. And then what I think I'm gonna do is I'm gonna dip it back in that water again one more time. I just wanna see what happens. All right, so when I do this again, I'm going to dip dye the outer petals and then just color in the center. Still pretty fun. All right, let's go to the next one. Okay, for this one, I want to play around with a ranunculus, and I want to do, you know what I'm going to do? Remember that yellow we used earlier? I'm gonna dip this in here first. The reason being is I want those center petals to be yellow, and to hand paint all of those would probably take a decent amount of time. So we're gonna have that yellow, okay, perfect. But now what we wanna do is I'm gonna take off some of the paint on the outer petals, that's the word I'm looking for, okay. I want to paint this side orange. And I might need the darker orange in just a minute, we'll see. And this one, we're gonna go around and just fill that all up. Okay. I think from camera, it's looking like it's just a brighter yellow, but I can promise you in person, it's orange. But let's see if we can get the camera to pick up a better orange. Here's a darker one. There we go. Now you can see that orange. Okay, so I'm gonna put some orange down. I'm gonna focus on the base for right now, and we're gonna try using our little water bottle. I know there's lots of like gaps when I'm talking because I'm thinking while I'm doing this. We're gonna grab our little water bottle and we're gonna spray all the petals and see if we can get that to like drip upward. Okay, so right now I'm just filling those in. So again, these paint pens definitely have a learning curve to working with them. But they're nice in terms of you don't really need the water by your side if you don't want it. You've got that little pen of water, and all of the paint is right there. It's a nice craft on the go. You could just take that if you wanted to and do what you wanted with them. Now what I'm gonna do is the petals that I painted orange, I'm gonna open them up right now. And we're going to, again, concentrate on the centers. And our flower is still pretty wet, so it's gonna take a little bit to pull up some of that paint, but we are gonna get that orange to come all the way up. And I'm kind of just giving it like brush strokes almost. It's looking really pretty. There's a lot of detail to these. Okay, and then we're gonna smush it back. Okay, so there's our orange on the outside, yellow in the center, ranunculus, and then what we're gonna do, we'll see if this works. A lot of the ranunculus, if you look at them, have a green center, like a bright green almost. So I'm gonna grab a bright green and we'll see if we can get it to, yeah, that is bright. Holy buckets. Might have to spray that down and see what happens. So I'm just gonna concentrate on the center of that. Ooh, boy. It's like alien green. Goodness. All right, so I'm gonna spray that down. My hope is we can lighten that up just a little bit. And I think we did. I'm gonna go in with another green though. That probably should have been the green I worked with the first time, but that's all right. And just trying to make it a little bit more yellow green and not so green green. All right, there we go. So there is a ranunculus. All right, let's try, I'll put that right there. Let's try using a already dyed, this is dyed with craft acrylic paint. I'm gonna lighten it, or like wetten it, soften it with a little bit of, mist some water on there, because we're gonna try to, some of these petals are a little bit stiffer, okay? And we did orange the last time with the other one that we were working with, so let's do like a brighter pink magenta. Now again, because we wet it, it's gonna come through a lot lighter, but we're gonna kind of just, in a downward motion, or kind of a scrubbing motion, we're gonna pull some paint through on there. All right, I think it's working. Sorry, I had to like look and see what I was doing. Okay. Now for this technique, I don't think I'm gonna go all the way into the center just because we might actually have some petals that break, and we don't want that. So I'm just gonna go in, scrub down closer to the center. I'm not gonna go way out. And we're just gonna pull some of that color up. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab that water brush and see if we can get it to kind of blend a little bit so there's not any harsh kind of lines. But, oh, that one I was a little too hard on. I just split the petal, but that's okay. Get in there. So wherever I can feel like I can get the pen in there, I'm gonna try to add some color, but again, I'm not gonna go way into the center. Okay, so there, we've got some color in there. So now let's grab a handy dandy water blender. Now you're gonna push on it to bring the, I don't know if you could see that right there. Hold on, let's see if we can get that to center. You see how the water starts to move in there? That's how you're gonna bring, you're gonna kind of push on the pen to get the water to come up into the tip, because right now it's dry. So we're gonna push on that a little bit. It's gonna go all the way up, and oh, I just dropped, drip drop. So I'm gonna get that so I know that it's pulled up and there's water coming out. Okay, so now I'm just gonna, yeah, that starts to blend it with that little bit of water. So I'm pushing on that to bring up some water to then blend in that color. Okay. So not as harsh a lines, but still there's some definition there with the color. It doesn't, we're not coloring the whole petal, we're just focusing on that center point. Okay, so that softened it up a little bit. There you go. So these paint pens will work on already pre-dyed flowers. One thing I'll say about that is you want to probably use a lighter based dyed colored flower versus a really dark, deep, rich color, because it's going to be harder to get the paint to kind of do those contrast. So keep that in mind when you're kind of playing around with these different techniques. flowers we played with today. I would love to hear in the comments, what was your favorite one? There's one that went kind of for me. The rest I absolutely loved, but I learned so much along with you guys, and I hope that's what happened as well. I hope it inspires you to just play a little bit. Again, we will make sure to link the products below in the description. You do not have to use what I used though. Whatever works for you is perfect. So please don't feel like you have to have the exact same materials that I did. Watercolor paint is amazing, and you can get it in all sorts of price points, as well as those watercolor pens if you're interested in using those. So take a look, let us know if you have any questions. As always, drop them in the comments. We will answer them as soon as possible. To find out more about the 100+ Sola style flowers we carry in the shop, go to ohyourelovely.com. And wait, hold on. If you love these videos, can't get enough, want to know when the next tutorial goes live, make sure to subscribe and ring that bell. And until next time, this is Stephanie from Oh You're Lovely, and you, my friends, are absolutely lovely. Bye, guys.